Get started as close to on time as possible. Let me start by saying a big thank you for everybody that's taken the time to come out and join us this evening. Just to be clear before we get started, tonight is not the nomination event. Tonight is an opportunity for our two declared candidates to be able to meet the people that they wish to represent. And if I could, just to lead into what we're about to do tonight, if we just take a minute to think of the people in the countries outside of Canada and what they're facing, and understand just how privileged we are to live in this country and to have the freedom to meet like this, and have the freedom to disagree in a way that we can respect each other's differences. Because we truly are privileged to be able to be here as a group tonight and to have the opportunity to hear from these two fine gentlemen that are interested in being the next elected MPP for our riding. There were some sheets floating around earlier for people to put questions on. Once you have those filled out, if you can pass them to the front, we will have time for about 2 questions from the floor. The questions that are not answered from the floor will be followed up by our 2 candidates after tonight. Designed to bring new prosperity to our region. Since the economic downturn and last election, we have seen a number of significant employers downsize or close their doors within our riding, hurting our families. Times like those require strong leadership and consistent representation. Tonight marks a significant step towards electing our next Liberal MPP for this riding. A step we must make together. A step toward electing a strong, positive voice to represent our riding. It is my duty and pleasure as your riding president to present Mr. John Earle and Mr. Del Jones, both declared candidates seeking a nomination for the SD&G riding as your Liberal candidate. And in the true sport of fair.
Monsieur le Président, amis labéraux, mesdames et messieurs, bonsoir, et merci d'avoir accepté l'invitation pour le débat de ce soir. Mr. President, Liberal friends, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking up our invitation to tonight's debate. I'm running for the Liberal nomination because I'm convinced that I can be an effective representative for our riding. I grew up in Morrisburg and have lived and worked throughout Ontario, Alberta, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island. As a child growing up in Morrisburg, I saw my mother get things done as a volunteer in the community while maintaining a household and raising 3 boys. Mom was on her own for 9 months of the year while my merchant marine father, Captain Earle Jones, was off sailing in the Great Lakes. Whether it was a church function or worked for the Chamber of Commerce, everyone knew that when Millie Jones was given a job to do, it could be considered done. And I remember going home from one of my first jobs as a student working in the local grocery store and telling my father how I always gave the customers a little extra when weighing out produce. I remember my father telling me that I had this wrong, that I could not do that. I had to be fair to both my employer and to the customer. My wife of 32 years, Karen, is a registered nurse, as is my daughter, Michelle. Michelle is currently pursuing a Master's of Health Science Bioethics at a degree at the University of Toronto. And my son, David, is also a full-time student at the University of Toronto, Emmanuel College, in the Master's of Divinity program. I was a municipal councillor for 4 years in South Dundas between 2006 and 2010. I understand local government issues and local challenges. I've worked with other members of council from our riding and made presentations to government departments. This includes working with our current MPP, Jim McDonnell, lobbying Ministry of Finance representatives on municipal tax issues in Toronto. I have a background in business. I understand business, both as a small business owner and particularly as a manager in large manufacturing operations. I was the director for the Ontario Dairy Council when I managed a cheese plant in southwestern Ontario, and while working for the largest dairy company in Canada. I am a professional accountant that has held senior management positions in finance, operations, logistics, and HR, during a career in the private sector spanning more than 20 years. I understand the needs of business, and I understand their frustrations. I also have an understanding of healthcare issues, and for a time was treasurer of the Winchester District Memorial Hospital. I have an understanding of the retirement home industry, and was part of a lobby group for more nursing home beds in our area while on municipal council. Because I have family members that are nurses, I know firsthand how much healthcare has changed over the years, and how much it continues to change. I also know how great our healthcare system can be, especially for those with serious medical issues. But I also know from personal experience the frustration of long wait times. I also have had experience working as a secondary school teacher for the last 9 years. 7 of those years have been in adult and alternative education, which has provided me with a unique perspective on our education system. Most importantly, I'm a committed and passionate liberal that thrives on challenges and doing what's right and fair for all. I have a track record of finding creative solutions to complex problems and a history of helping to make large organizations more efficient. I also happen to believe that Kathleen Wynne is an outstanding premier, and I would like to be part of her team. There's been a great deal of change over the last 40 years, especially in more recent years, as our manufacturing base has been seriously damaged. We have lost thousands of high-paying manufacturing jobs, and with that loss, our local and provincial economy has struggled. But with these difficult times, I see opportunity. Every day that I enter the classroom, I see the same potential in our young people that has always existed. I see the same work ethic and commitment to excellence in our workforce that I witnessed while working at Nestle Canada in Chesterville, where it was well known that we were the go-to factory for many new products because we had a workforce that could be counted on to get the job done right. There has been a great deal of change over the years, but what doesn't change, what can't change, is our commitment to our principles and to fairness. Right now, as we speak, world events remind us that the future is unpredictable. But we can temper unpredictable currents with a resolve to hold steadfast to who we are. My mother and father raised me here. With my wife, I've raised my children here. Whatever comes, whatever new challenge might arise, my voice in Queen's Park will always be from here. I'm convinced that my experience, education, and skills developed over a lifetime will guarantee my success as a Liberal MPP and as a representative of all the people of Stormont, Dundas, South Glengarry. It is for that reason that I ask for your support and your vote.
Both gentlemen have agreed to a coin toss to decide who goes first tonight.
Bought that back.
Tails it is. Dale.
Good evening. I'd like to start tonight out by thanking each and every one of you for coming here this evening. I know it means a lot to myself and as well as Dell. C'est un grand plaisir pour moi de vous voir ici ce soir. Mon nom est John Earle, et j'aimerais vous demander l'honneur d'être votre représentant at Queen's Park. For those of you who don't know me, I was born and raised in Cornwall. I lived in a small house on Prince Arthur Street in the heart of the Francophone community. I went to nativity school. I ate lunch every day with my dad, and I would walk to and from school. Times were different back then. Now I'm the father of 2 small children, Ariana, who's 10 going on 14, and Ryland, who's 8. And they're allowed to walk about 100 feet in front of me at all times. Times have changed. Growing up, my sister and I were introduced to art and culture at a very early age. When you have a mother who's an artist and a writer and a performer, you're asked to express yourself often. My mom recently reminded me of my colorful palette. That is, when I was about 2 years old, I snuck into her oil paints and ate some of her paint. Now, she did confirm it was cadmium red, so at least I got the color right. I think she made a quick call to Dr. Earle, and who said, who convinced her that after some milk to wash it down, that I'd survive. I left Cornwall for university in Ottawa, and then for a short stint I lived in Hamilton, but I found my way back less than a year later. See, I quickly realized This was my home. This is where I belonged. I couldn't imagine living today without, seeing the shores of the St. Lawrence River or being able to enjoy underneath the waves of the beautiful St. Lawrence River. It's a treasure to us, and I think we really need to keep hold of those treasures of our natural resources. When people ask me what I do, and it's happened a lot lately, for those who don't know me, I own a business with my partner Frank, who's here in the room today. Now, I've known Frank for almost 40 years because he lived across the street and over the fence from me on that little house in Prince Arthur. There are people who call me a serial entrepreneur. I think that's a very polite way of saying that I've invested in a lot of endeavors. Some have been successful, others have just been really good learning lessons. But I think without risk, there can be no great reward. I ran a restaurant in Cornwall in the mid-90s for 4 years, while I also ran and built my first real business. I remember the day I started at the restaurant, my father said to me, he said, "Are you sure you want to leave your $14,000 a year job to work in a restaurant?" Well, 4 years later, I submitted my resignation as manager of the restaurant, and my father said to me, "Are you sure you want to leave your job at the restaurant to go work as a contract programmer? Is that a good idea?" Well, for the next 18 years, I worked my way up from contract programmer at a $40 million company to being the director of business development at a $600 million company. I was extremely fortunate, and I learned how to seize opportunities when they came my way. I've had the opportunity to create partnerships with companies such as Coors Brewery, the City of Metro Toronto, IMAX, Quaker, Alcohol, Phillips, just to name a few. Deciding it was time to leave that was no easy decision. When I started my professional career, the internet was reached through a modem and a dial-up phone line. And a mobile phone, well, it was attached to a car. Times have changed. In 2007, after our first film project on the Lost Villages was completed, I moved to a new position at Sigma Point Technologies here in Cornwall. I started on the Monday. On Wednesday, I was diagnosed with cancer. More change. It's one thing to stand up and to talk about, the healthcare and the healthcare in our communities in Ontario. It's another to have, lived through the trials of the healthcare system. If I hadn't been diagnosed quickly by the doctor in Cornwall who found my cancer, I wouldn't be standing here today embarking on the journey that I'm about to embark on. We need to ensure that healthcare is a top priority in Ontario. My work relationships ask me why I want to practice politics, and I've heard this lots in the last few days. The answer is simple. I don't want to practice politics. I have no admiration of being a great politician. I simply want to be the best representative for the riding of Stormont, Dundas, and South Glengarry that I can be. Ma femme Melissa est à mon côté. Elle connaît que quand j'embarque dans un projet que je crois dedans, que je mets 150% de mon énergie afin de réussir l'objectif désiré. I am deeply ambitious for this region, for Ontario, and what we can achieve. The past 4 years, we've lost so many opportunities in SD&G. I want to see our region moving forward and not sliding backwards. Times are changing. It's time we move forward. My name is John Earle, and I want to work hard to be the engine of change for you at Queen's Park for the next 4 years. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.